Okay, I just had to show you guys this because I think this stuff like this is freaking so cool. When they have to work on the stream and they have to, I believe, go underneath, and be down there. You have this holding back all the dirt around you or maybe above you. I'm not exactly sure if it's used vertically or horizontally. I mean, but it's just, it's just that part of me that's just like, wow, that's fucking wild. Like, I don't know, just to see how it's done, tools, like, look at that big little tool. Look at that tool, it's so cool. Bro, you know how to use that tool. Oh my God. That's fucking cool. That's, how it's, that's us. That's men. That thing's fucking cool, bro. How do you use it? Yeah, so, I was thinking about the recent, thing of the white rural rage argument. And really, this was too on the nose. I mean, and quite figuratively, in a way that could be interpreted as quote-unquote anti-Semitic. Because the people who were doing it, both of the guys, like, you listen to their last names and you're like, okay, well, that last name's not the most obscure Germanic last name, but the other one, was pretty clearly, what the name was, and then we've got all these surveys that they show that, the whites in the rural areas are boiling over with rage, and yet none of these people can show what would evidence this, like absolute evidence, such as the extrajudicial violence, because we have a cultural history of that. We actually have some kind of cultural history of this. If anybody was to use such methods to terrorize another group, they would have something that they could say, yeah, you do this makes these people really afraid because everybody knows this. And one of the most important things of all to almost immediately get into is how I've even read on my channel papers, letters from the right as the revolution was just underway. So So after the revolution took so many years, then after that it took so much longer to ratify the Constitution, and so during this period of time, there are various groups that got letters written to them because they were worried. And one of these groups are Jews. And there's a letter from Washington to this, one of the oldest synagogues in the United States. I think it's in Massachusetts. And it was to make them understand, no, you're a part of this too. This is not going to be a republic that's going to separate people by religion and such like. And it's a beautiful piece of writing of course, it's of that era. But it's absolutely this has always been a part of the deal, the inclusion aspect. And it was because of the idea that religion is naturally accommodatory to the greater society. So that religion organizes their own people to do things that usually are beneficial overall to all of society, such as feeding those who are poor, housing those who are homeless, various ways of bailing each other out beneficial benefit programs that they develop in their church or in some social organization. This was something understood by Christians of the even colonial times of Jews. This was a known thing that they did because of British Jews. It wasn't like there weren't Jews in Britain who came over. And that's the whole point. And so, and the whole thing is they weren't a problem for anyone. There was no point at which you had to suddenly feed them. You know, they already had their own organized way of doing things, and they didn't really upset the flow of society because they were their own. They were their group, and they took care of each other, and were involved enough in early America that the Secretary of War, if I remember, for the Confederacy was openly the first openly Jewish legislator, and we never discuss him, and it just because of the distastefulness that he was a Confederate and that he fled to France. You know, of any country, he fled to France. That was one of those things I just always sat there. I'm just like, and he fled to France in the end, and I'm like, this is just funny how this comes up like this. But so this idea that there's some portion of the countryside, just like, okay, most people in the United States live in 150 counties out of 3,000. So these are the people who live in the 2,800 counties. Spread like mustard seeds, just spread wildly around 2,800 counties. And it's like, they're too busy to be angry at people. I'm sorry. Have you lived outside of town? You're too busy to be angry at people. This is ridiculous. When I hear this goddamn garbage, oh, they're so angry and they're gonna get everyone, and I'm like, no, they're not. They're too busy having to redig a well. They have to worry about their septic. They've got family and then there's this. Then there's that issue, is that when you actually look psychologically, you start to actually break a lot of this down. What these sociologist guys, what these characters are starting to claim, they're trying to make this claim that the group that ends up typically being, if the outcomes are mom and dad stay together to raise the child to about 18, that there's no major disaster of any sort, that everybody keeps their job, nobody goes to jail. They're going to have outcomes generally that are going to be okay at the worst. It's when something breaks in that cycle. Somebody goes to jail. There's some major catastrophe. Your house burns down. Some you absolutely can't do anything about. Mom and dad break up. Cha-ching. That's the big one. That's the big one. Mom and dad break up. Because that actually starts to malform impulse control. Because that seems to be something that has to do very, very much with some type of input from the father that is exceedingly powerful, and we can't get past that in developmental science. We can't get past it. It's in cognitive science, in human development. You can't get past that with the human as a primate, that something about impulse control is heavily controlled by the inputs of the father, and it has something to do with the development of certain psychological psychological qualities or qualities of the psyche, willpower, things like that. So you're getting these people that, because like the way that we understand this, the religious are actually the happy people. They seem to then find even more happiness in religion. It's not another way around. They are the people who are happy. They can make a happy feeling happen in their mind and not feel misery, which a lot of people don't understand this. I didn't realize like that, in that, yeah, I didn't realize that there's people that their mind is really beladen by misery. And I thought it was just kind of a cynical thing. But I think that's why I never really quite fit in with some of the groups that like I liked hanging out with, because they were fun, but they did kind of act a little odd, some of them. And so these aren't the rural ragers that everyone's looking for, because they're too busy, they're too happy. Even if they're poor, they're actually far happier than a lot of city-dwelling groups. And how would you know that? Well, the city-dwelling groups actually kill each other's children. There you go. I mean, it's not that hard. It's not difficult math there. It doesn't take great degrees and powerful psychology. No, in cities, the youth will try to kill one another and cull one another as if they are a lower form of primate. They will try to kill and or cull one another like the lower form of primate. How would you associate this with some lower? Because when the killer's mother, with this person, like they're on camera, they're on Instagram, I'm going to come there and I'm going to do this to you. The killer has killed. The mother is like, oh, my son, he didn't do nothing wrong. Making everybody come up with the didn't do nothing meme and stuff. And so now nobody's there. You're not hearing anybody. No, I don't even think. You have to look around on the right. You have to know where to look on the right to find the words dysgenia in articles, in discussing society and what's going on in American race and IQ. You have to know where to look. This isn't normal talk. I'm giving a lot of people who find this little peek behind the look open kimono on the right wing. You can't find this talk from most places. Most people don't. Ooh, no. Jesus wouldn't like that. That's a very important thing that a lot of Democrats do not understand about why the MAGA thing even works. How are these people all kind of organized it's because the feeling of being in the same country and countrymen. Because religiously, philosophically, there's people who do, let's not discuss that subject. Jesus doesn't like that subject. But there's other guys who are like, that's all we talk about. Countrymen. It's a matter of honor. Everybody deserves fair play. None of this beating each other up in the street. None of that. No. Everyone deserves fair play. And they realize, no, the Democrats are as crooked as they can be because they think like women. And women are generally honorless. And that's and don't literally do not believe in morals and ethics. And that's the horrible thing that we're finding is a part of the dysgenia of the present generation. Can't talk about that. You could say that women have become more liberal. You could say that because we have surveys and and polite society agrees with such a thing. So see, as somebody who I understand MAGA and I understand the right, I could say all this. I could know thyself. I know that it's like, no. Somebody like me has to be a propagandist for what I want, because there are people that I don't know what they want, but the inkling I'm getting, I want to win more than I want them to win. I want it my way, so I'm going to propagandize it my way. I'm not going to follow them. I'm not going to wave their banner. No point in doing that. I'm going to hold my flag up high. So, there's real death, real killing, people being chopped up. The National Guard has to search for weapons in the inner city. Have to search people. You literally now have the military itself in your pockets. The military has to go through your pockets for you to live in New York City. And supposedly it's the rage that what you really have to fear is that a bunch of farmers are going to do something to you. They're going to come into town like they're going to burn down Philadelphia like they did back in 17 yardadardadar. They're too busy. They're too busy living real lives. If you were important in that way, you would already know. They would already. You see, and then it's this too. Let me make this really. This is the part that I kind of. It's the weird way that the supernatural has stepped in, and you're like, wait a second, I'm enjoying that a little too much. Is this the devil or is this God? And is this the devil or is this divine? And that is, for some reason, God won't smite you all in one blow. I've noticed this. I'm sure all of you, because there's those moments where when you start getting more and more on the right, you really are like, I'm even going to erase my search history for you, Lord. Like, you're wondering sometimes if this song you like, you're like, now that I think about the lyrics of this song, it's kind of unholy, but and then when you guys are like, oh yeah, we're gonna have trannies to dance in front of your kids and this and that, and then this like person ends up like 3 months later being like put in federal prison because of the CP on their computer, and you're just like, wow, that's it. And they're not even in the headlines. Like the left is trying to keep them out of the headlines, but they're like on Breitbart or on Post Millennial. The quartering is like, oh, update on that. Is a dude who likes shaking his naked fake, breasts in front of children. Yeah, he's going to fucking Fed. He's going to the Fetty. He's a petty in the Fetty. All right, good luck, buddy. And I'm like, no, Lord, I'm not supposed to laugh at something like this. Everything about this is terrible, but oh my God. I'm sorry. It's sort of, I think like maybe there's a type of guardian angel that they like leg kick Satan a lot, because that's, it's like leg kick, and it's, oh, I hate that, oh, it's just evil, it's just to see it, like, and so seeing your cities, like so every possible now. Okay, there isn't this kind of rage because there was, oh no, flat tire, oh no. And so there isn't this claimed rage and this and that. No. This is, especially where they're positing it as, and these people are destitute, they're all on drugs, blah blah. No. That's in the Blue Enclave, and the drug heads are here in this Blue Enclave. I'm like dodging them. Like I'm walking around circuitously because of all the drug freaks that are just like got a whole fucking mattress out on the fucking sidewalk, and like are like creeping in the shadows, looking fucking creepy. And it's daylight. It's a sunny day. They're still finding shadows to creep in. Fucking Gollum, bro. Anyway, so there isn't this rage thing because it seems like there's scales, and the scales come into balance. While this was sort of this occult idea, at some point somebody pointed out, no. The star sign of the scales has long been understood as that. Like it's one of the symbols and signs. So that was the whole thing about with Christianity having a syncretic quality, is that there would be God weighs out the good and the evil in the world. There is justice, and that's the idea, is that's why there's a star sign that are scales. So so the scales come into balance. So there shouldn't be, and then there's that God is king, and judgment is the Lord's alone, holiness unto the Lord. Literally those three concepts, and you'll hear them now and then among the right. This is why so many people got into Christianity. This is why so many people converted, is because they're like, no, God is a God of mercy and justice, and what we have to reject that which is evil, and then God will do the rest. That's the concept, the praxis, the whole spiel, real deal Holyfield, and it keeps working. People call it the Trump curse. I like Michael Savage's God Waits, but there a lot of people, they kind of put it as, like sort of this idea, like the things come into their natural balance again. But my whole thing is no. Everybody who's messed with the right, they just get theirs, and it always happens quite naturally. They fail and fail big, and they fail and explode on the way down, and it's fun to watch, but it's also it's very cautionary. That's the whole deal. It's very cautionary. It's like, so watch out, like know who's king in this regard, like know who's the dealer of this deck, like don't lose pace, don't stray from the path. The same fate awaits you if you mess around, fuck around and find out with God the Father. And so it's very humbling, especially for people like us Gen Xers, that this has hit, and millennials, that this is extremely humbling. That we'll just be like, oh my gosh, this person who caused all this grief on the internet to people mostly of the right has had like their whole fucking world fall apart and get crushed, and explode into more pieces on the way down. And that we just couldn't understand it. Or somebody to see boycotting and how much that's succeeded. That boycotting has succeeded so immensely. It's almost impossible to overstate how humongous of a success boycotting has been. And it's going to be studied by marketing people for decades to come. and because of how badly the press is even really covering it, and that it'll be analyzed from look at these posts on these websites as opposed to these posts on these websites. By the end of it, these websites, example number 2, all were out of business within the next year or two of this boycott because they were widely seen as a bad source from that point on. I could tell you that like 3 to 4 years ago, Get Woke, Go Broke was not being taught in major marketing programs. That nobody was bringing this up. That there was actually boycotts happening to companies because of the positions that they were holding in relation to social issues, and that you could track it. And they weren't getting in. And I knew a marketing person that their marketing program simply was just not. They just didn't cover it at all. And what was really interesting was that this person thought that one of these kind of things, I think it was the kneeling, was really attracting people to the brand of her school's team. And I was like, no, people hate that. How aren't you seeing this all over the internet, how much people actually hate that? And so it's really fascinating that now she's probably looking back at like thousands of dollars spent. That it's like this guy who was like at the time like serving coffee knew more about her field of study than she was being taught at that time, and could have literally put her on to something that would have been a project that would have probably gotten her like, yeah, I mean, she could have done something very different. There's a local brand that she had friends, she was friends with, that I found kind of interesting in the long run, how that local brand ended up. But anyway, I just want to put that out there that there's not really this way of looking at the way that the white rules are behaving and seeing them. You just aren't seeing it. It's not there. Just not seeing it. And so but this idea that in the inner city, that unwed mothers and their black sons are just annihilating each other, and that the press is desperately trying to make it seem kind of like they aren't. And until they couldn't fake it anymore. All of that's I'm finding it very telling. It just says a lot. It says a lot about both sides. That like one side could really face what they are, while the other side doesn't even want to really protect their own constituency because they want to hide information about the violence and crime that they face, which is like really, actually, that's pretty evil now I think about that. All right, later.